Let's go ahead and get started with the meeting. And thank you for everybody's patience. I appreciate it. Let's do roll call. Susan Drew, present. Michael Weinberg, present.
Here.
Yeah. Makoto Lane. Sam Schroyer. And Kathleen Walker here. Don may or may not be here by telephone, so we'll leave that as an unknown. Okay, so is there any public comment? I do know that, did we lose Sarah? No, there she is. Sarah mentioned that there was a gentleman that did want to participate. And did you get a hold of him, Sarah?
I haven't, but his question I think we've resolved, but I'll keep trying to get a hold of him and we can come back to him.
His concern appeared to be the trail that's behind the car wash going down to Tupper Lane, and whether or not that was a public easement. Evidently, he's been walking on that, and some neighbors have been implying that he's trespassing or something, which he is not. So I think we mentioned that he could call Mike Walker, and Mike can talk to him about that and answer any questions. Okay, anybody else had any other public comments for the agenda? Okay, the consent agenda, the first thing on there is the meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to look at the meeting minutes?
They looked okay to me.
Okay. Makoto, Mike, Susan, have you guys had a chance to read through the meeting minutes?
Yes.
Sure, I know.
Susan, you're on mute. Susan, unmute yourself. There you go.
No,
Okay.
looking for them.
Okay.
Where I
Makoto and Sam, did you guys read through them?
can't find the agenda.
Okay. Don, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Oh,
Yay! We can hear you.
by phone. Yes, we need you.
Wow. Holy crap. That is incredibly frustrating.
Can't we just go sit outside in a park somewhere 6 feet apart? Yeah.
As long as we don't have more than 25 people, yes.
Right, yeah. Oh, good. Okay. Well, I'm going to ask if there's any changes to the meeting minutes. I think I had one change, and that was sorry. Section, and I'm on page 7 of 19 of the agenda packet. It says PUDs required to donate 25% of property in addition to either donated parkland or a fee in lieu of. It says the current master plan update has identified a need to have more open space. I'm not sure if that is the case.
Okay,
So
I'll note that.
I guess I would like that It was said, or it's possible it was said, but it's not the case anymore, but I don't even think it was said. Master plan discussed, discussed a need or a supply demand or whatever for open space. But I'm not sure that we made the statement that we identified a need to have more. Yeah. Do you recall, Don?
Open space, I don't think we needed more. It was more neighborhood parks
Right,
that we
okay.
needed, I believe.
So you might just rephrase that to say something to the effect that the master plan update discusses the supply and demand for open space.
Okay,
Yeah.
will do.
Anybody see any other changes? Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
So move.
Mike made a motion to approve the meeting minutes from our last meeting. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Was that Sam?
Don.
Don.
Don, okay. Motion was made by Michael, seconded by Don to approve the meeting minutes as amended.
Thank
All
you.
those in favor, vote or raise your hand, I guess.
Aye.
Unanimous approval of the meeting minutes as amended. Thank you. Okay, the next agenda topic then is are there any
All right.
changes to the agenda? I will give a quick update on the John's review point because we've got good there.
Can we do that
Okay.
in the
Any other
update,
changes? Who's talking?
I was just gonna say, can we do the John's Root update at the end under updates or old business?
Can anybody else hear?
I could not understand that.
Okay.
It's my internet, never mind.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that. Okay, if there's no other changes to the agenda, then I'll get to new business. And the first thing on the agenda is Bull Run Terrace. And Tracy, you're the lead on this. Would you mind introducing folks for us that are
Sure.
with you?
Sure. Can you just let me know that you can hear me first? Can you
Yes,
hear
I
me?
can hear you. Can
Okay.
everybody else hear him? Everybody give a thumbs up if you can hear Tracy.
My thumb is up.
All right. Thank you. So yeah, my name is Tracy Brown and I'm a land use planner. And former employee of the city of Sandy as director of planning. Alex Reverman, why don't you raise your hand, Alex?
Hi, everybody.
Alex is part of the development team and he's a realtor in the Portland metropolitan area. And so, I guess this agenda item was, we wanted to just kind of bring our latest plan to you and, try to answer any questions about it and also, get parts. And I'm not sure exactly what you received from us. I sent Sarah, and I could share that. Here's my screen. Deemed complete by the 14th of this, how to develop the site. sharing the me shows the I guess our proposal. So this is the, I guess, the kind of the current existing parks, but I don't know if, Sarah, if you can bring up, or are you doing this, Kathleen? If you could bring up, I guess, what we sent in, that would be helpful.
Tracy, the board all has it as part of
Okay,
the packet. I am literally in and out. You guys are freezing up. I'm hearing some things and not others. I will try to see if I can do that, but I am barely hanging on here.
okay. That's fine. I mean, if you would like, I could share it from my computer, but
Tracy, isn't what I have on the, can you guys see what I have on the screen here?
That's the wrong one.
yeah, so that's the Your Parks master plan.
That's the ESA document.
Yeah,
Okay, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Hold on.
Yeah, I think it's just above that, Kathleen.
So- I have two screens. Hold on.
Yeah, I think you have to go back to that first screen, the park minute screen.
Okay. Okay.
okay, that's it. Yeah, thank you.
Uh-huh.
So this is, so actually that's not the latest.
Kathleen, there's
Hold on, I
one.
got it. How
Oh,
about
Get
that's
the
that?
it. Okay, perfect.
She has it, the revised one. There you go.
Okay, that's it right there. Okay, so actually, if you want to go back to the other one, that would be fine too, and I'll just kind of explain the history of this a little bit. And so I guess the initial concept for the project. So I guess stepping back, we probably over a year ago, the applicant had a pre-application conference with the city, and kind of and based on the input we received at that, as well as there's a little more history to this. This property had a subdivision approved on it in 2005, and that subdivision never was built because it's a very financially challenging site, because as you see, DeBarco Road goes through the site, and as a result of DeBarco Road going through, there's also quite a bit of frontage improvements along the highway. And so financially, it didn't work very well for the developer to move forward. So originally there was a park shown, so was approved on 0.4 acres, and you can see that area there. So that's about 1.4 acres, and that was approved and required as, and then I think it was later sold to Lennar, actual subdivision on this property that we're talking about, and proposed a park kind of mirroring the Deer Point Park. So when the latest developer purchased the property, because of the financial challenges, they really felt it was more conducive to doing a little bit higher density on the property. Originally, so this whole area is in what is called a village, and within the village there's various zoning districts, and one of the zoning districts is that kind of pinkish area, which is known as C3 or community commercial. Our original proposal that was submitted and deemed complete by the city didn't have any of this commercial area in it. It was primarily the higher density, which is in the brown, as well as a little bit of the yellow, which is low density residential. Because of that, eliminating that commercial, there was some issues with the city's buildable lands inventory. And so if you could scroll to the next screen, the one below that. So the latest thinking now is that we want to leave the C3 zoning on the property so we don't run into the issue with this buildable lands inventory. Because what was going to happen is the elimination of that was going to create a deficit in the city's long-term buildable lands inventory, and that's basically a no-no in planning. And so with the latest proposal, we're actually increasing slightly the amount of commercial that's on the property from what it's currently zoned. So we're kind of going along our merry way. You know, we had made a revision to the plan to leave the commercial, so that didn't become a problem. And we had a park shown on the property because that was, you know, I guess the thinking during the pre-application conference that had also been done during the previous approval. So then Kathleen, if you could go to the kind of the draft parks master plan. Yeah, this is the existing inventory. There should be I think figure 4 is the proposed. Yeah, well, actually figure 4, there you go. So, you know, we're kind of in the thinking, actually, can you go down one more figure 4? Thank you. So we're kind of thinking, okay, we've addressed the commercial issue, we're kind of moving forward. And then I was looking around on the city's website and I came across the park system proposed inventory. And this is kind of showing, you know, at least in a preliminary way, where the city would like to see proposed parks.
Tracy,
So,
that's kind of a mistake on the part of ESA. You know, it's very preliminary, but all along our process has been to add to Deer Point.
okay.
And I think for some reason the issue had to do with the fact that, you know, it's not a new park, you know, so it didn't show up as a new park. It was just an expansion of the existing undeveloped park. But I think even in some of the, you know, it's possible that some of the acreage calculations and all proposed increasing that. So I did send an email to, Sarah kind of mentioned this to me, and I sent an email to Tracy about that because
Kelly.
I think it's just an oversight. That's been our, you know, that's kind of what we've been telling the neighbors all along, is that the reason it hasn't developed so far was we were waiting to acquire the additional property. So I don't want to kind of get any rumors started that wasn't the plan all along. It's kind of where I'm going with that.
Okay, I mean, so that was, you know, my concern. Saw this map that you probably all are aware, but I'll just kind of explain it since I'm very familiar with how the city's parks process works is there's essentially two components to parks. One is the parks land component, and the way the ordinance, the development code reads it, you know, and if the city decides to collect a fee in lieu of, there's a dollar amount associated with that. So for every residential development, there's a formula that you go through to come up with the acreage of parkland. And it's based on the number of units, essentially. So you run through this formula, you come up with an acreage amount, and then the code says it's the city's decision to require the park or to collect the fee in lieu of. And so, you know, I don't think we're opposed to proposing a park there. It just kind of caught me off guard, because what I didn't want to happen is if we proposed a park, we couldn't get fee in lieu of credit for that, because that's a big deal. So the other component, so that's the first component, the land component. The other component is, I guess it's called Parks SDCs, System Development Charges, and that's assessed. So the land component is done at the time of subdivision, and it's calculated, paid as a separate fee at the time of building permit. So there's two components, and for, you know, the SDC component is about $3,700 per single family unit and about $2,500 per multifamily unit. So it's just a calculation, how many units are you building, and that's what you're charged with each building permit. That development charge. Two questions that I wanted to talk to the Parks Board about. The first one is, you know, will the city require the parkland dedication? And, you know, Kathleen just kind of mentioned that there is a desire, and this map doesn't show it, but there seems to be a desire from the development on this property. And the other has to do with, you know, so as this developer is developing the property, I'm kind of looking at to see if the city would be interested, or, you know, if the Parks Board would be willing at this to build that park. You know, so there, you know, I see it as kind of a win-win, unless the city already has plans to build it and the money and the bank, because the timing is such that, you know, as this developer following approval, then they're going to want to start developing the property, and there will be equipment on the site that can do grading and, you know, all that kind of stuff that could help to improve the park. And so turning it from, you know, a grassy field on Deer Point and, you know, bare land dedicated to this project to actually something that is more of an actual park. I guess as part of that, the reason I mentioned the two parts of the SDCs is the system development charges. And I did a quick calculation based on, you know, the number of units that we're proposing, and those SDCs are roughly in the $450,000 to $500,000 range. And so I was considering that that could be a substantial park improvement if the city is willing to provide credits for that work. And would all have to be done, obviously, based on, you know, approved plans and, you know, engineering estimates and design and things like that. But the Parks Board's role I mean, I don't want to, the parks, that's a decision of the city council to sign an agreement with the developer to improve parkland. But, the parks board certainly can provide recommendations to the city council. So, I was kind of looking at it as a win-win, if the developer's paying this amount as they build units anyway to the city, would it be more, a benefit to the city to also have the developer build the park as part of their development? And so then at the end of the day, there's a park for the residents of this new subdivision. There's a park for the residents of the Deer Point subdivision, and it works together more. So I don't know if there's any questions about that or clarification about the how it all works, I guess, in terms of the dollars and so on and so forth. But that was kind of the two questions I wanted to ask. Will, because it's in the map, and if yes, would the Parks Board consider recommending to the City Council that they engage with the developer to help build that park out there? I think that's kind of what I wanted to go over, and I'd be glad to, answer questions.
Hi, Tracy. I'm Don Robert.
Hi.
I finally was able to get to the meeting. I apologize for that. I'm having some internet problems, so it kind of goes in and out a little bit too. But so a couple questions. If we were to amend accepting the donation of, from what I see, it looks like 84,000 square feet or 64,000, 84,000 square feet. And I assume that's
Correct.
Yeah.
And so what would that total acreage come to at that point?
If you go back that one, Kathleen. So I just want to clarify. So the area that we're showing right now in green on that map, I guess you're on the phone, so you can't see it.
I can't see it. No, I was able to get on my computer. Finally, get my computer to work.
Okay. So the area we're showing is, at this point, we don't know the exact number of units out there. We know based on the original proposal, there would be somewhere around 220 units. That number is very likely to go down. Part of the reason it would go down is because we haven't done all the study to figure out all the topography of the site, develop a plan. And then since we're leaving some of that commercial zoning, there's probably not going to be as many units as there would have been if it was zoned for high density multifamily. But roughly right now, there's, there's 1.4 acres. So we're probably looking at least another acre and a half. What we're showing in green there is 1.95 acres. My guess is that number is that is kind of the maximum possible.
Right.
My guess is that number will go
right.
down.
But then do we own the tax lot in white next to it? Is that ours?
Yeah, it's under city ownership. So,
okay. So we own that. How many acres is that, Kathleen?
1.4 acres.
Yeah.
1.4 that we already own, and you're proposing potentially up to another 1.8 then, correct?
Well, the green is showing 1.95. I'm thinking it'll be closer to 1.5 or, between 1.5 and 1.8, somewhere in there.
Okay, so add that to the whatever we already have, and we're up around 3 acres, give or take, right?
Yeah, probably a little over 3 acres is what you'd end up with as a park there.
Okay, and you're suggesting that we correspond with the city council and recommend that we accept that donation along with a participation to develop?
Basically, yeah.
And what form does the participation to develop come in?
Well, what they would need to do, and this would be done after the subdivision is approved, they would enter into what is called a development agreement with the developer, and that's something that's written up by attorneys to basically, say that, based on these conditions, the developer is willing to make these improvements in exchange for system development charge credits. That's the essential part of it. I guess another kind of component to this is figuring out the plan for the park.
Well, I was going to get to that. Right now, we have an agreement to do a citywide master plan. Part of that citywide master plan includes 2 site plans, correct, Kathleen? And this would be one of those site plans that would be able to be included in that. So the cost of doing the site plan basically is already the cost of doing the master plan for this site, I should say, would already be covered through our budget. So really what we would need to do after that would be construction documents and then construction. But what I'm hearing you say is the participation would be limited to the dollar amount of what the SDCs would be. Is that correct?
Yeah, that would be, because right now the code, would require the developer to basically grade it and seed it, not do anything above and beyond that. And so the expectation was.
And you were saying you're expecting about 200 houses in that area?
I think it's going to be less. So as I said before, based on the number of around 200, it would be roughly in the neighborhood of $450,000 to $500,000 of SDC charges.
Okay. So a nice little sum.
Yeah,
at least to be able to get the a little bit of upgraded work done on it. Wouldn't build a full park, but that's okay. It's still a good start.
I have some questions. So to start with, the original zoning for this was R2 and R1, is that right?
R2, R1, and
Commercial.
C3.
Yeah. And so what you're asking for is a zone change plus approval of the R1 development, but the R3 and I guess maybe the C3 stuff is not part of your application?
No,
is that,
it will be. This plan that you're showing or something very similar to it will be part of a revised submittal. Right now, the application basically have kind of stopped the process a little bit, and we were in the process of revising it to figure out, how do we address the C3 deficit. We looked at all kinds of options. The developer looked at purchasing some other residential land somewhere else, rezoning that to commercial. And then as they thought about it more and more, they thought, maybe this is kind of an asset here that they could build, I don't know, a mini hotel, something that is commercially oriented and just stick with the zoning that's there. So one thing I want to mention is, I did a calculation based on the current zoning. So based on the current zoning and the previous approval that was on the site back in, mid 2000s, I guess it is, 2005, there was roughly around 88 units. And so the size of that park would be substantially less than is proposed. So it's a sliding thing. More units, the greater the park requirement. It's probably roughly half the size that's shown based on the original. I think it was around an acre. something like that, based on the original plan of the current zoning.
Yeah, I think it was, I mean, I kind of did some preliminary calculations on the existing zoning of how many units. And the reason I'm bringing up the zoning a little bit is, yeah, because it sounds like you don't, when you don't really know what the proposed development is on the residential R3, it's hard to kind of figure out, well, how much land do they owe us and all that. That's I guess the point I'm making. It's kind of unknown at this point.
For sure, Cal. It's just been so difficult to make all these pieces try to work. I mean, I've been on this thing for 10 years trying to make it work. And when Lennar had it, they just had the minimum park that Tracy was talking about before, but it is just a tremendously difficult site to make work from all angles with the different zonings and the park needs and everything.
Well, I was around here when we developed, well, we didn't develop, but we acquired the Deer Point Park to begin with, and Susan was, I think, 2. And one of the things that we were trying to get away from was, the highway frontage parkland is not ideal. It's loud and, from a safety standpoint with small kids and balls rolling at this and that. Not ideal. So that was one thing that kind of came up where, we've got even more highway frontage now. And then I guess this, I haven't seen this before. The C talks about having homes facing the park and that kind of thing. It's a little kind of different kettle of fish to have, the commercial there fronting the park, not knowing what the commercial is.
It's just tough. They were stumped when it went in for approval the first time, and it's just tough.
Is this purple zone where the commercial was the existing? Is that where?
This is kind of,
but yeah,
it was kind of roughly in that area,
Yeah.
but it didn't include that as much. It was kind of roughly in that area, we'll say.
There was basically too much infrastructure, all those roads, because of the alley loading and this sort of thing. So that commercial, that's kind of what probably never got developed.
Yeah, so originally on the original zoning, there was 2.84 acres of C3 zoning. And so kind of a rule of thumb is you take out 25% for roads. And so one of commercial there, and this plan is showing 3.09 acres of commercial. The revised plan. Go ahead.
Old one or the new one?
The new one. The one that's down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one. So this is, we look at it as either gross acreage or net. And net is after you take out roads. And so the net area of this is, 3.09 acres. The gross area of what it is now is 2.84 acres. And a kind of a rule of thumb is you take out 25%. So really it's 2.13 acres of net compared to 3.09. So about an acre more of C3. We've kind of envisioned, when we had proposed the property for multifamily and we were taking out all the C3, we kind of envisioned a nice kind of sidewalk differentiating kind of at the perimeter between the development and the park. We kind of provide a wide, not a street, but and actually the units that were proposed there, the concept is that they would front onto the park. So there would be units and the parking lot would be kind of behind. So there would be units along Dubarco, a parking lot in the interior, and then a building kind of facing the park with a wide sidewalk differentiating between the park and the units.
Tracy, do you guys have some more drawings about more specifics of what you're talking about on these? And the reason I ask that is because, again, and just going to the park stuff, this isn't a, planning commission meeting or anything, but, like on the commercial, you could, my understanding, I could be wrong about this, but just clarify for me, you could put commercial on the first floor and then multi-story apartments above that, adding to the number of residential units.
Right.
And so that's where I kind of get like, how much parkland are we, owed? And then, I guess if we're owed more parkland than you all, because you end up putting more units there, then I suppose the city would ask for, additional in lieu of fee in lieu of to make up for it or something like that. I don't, Don probably has ideas about how that works in other cities, but those are the kind of questions I guess I'm asking about is, it's a little bit awkward to not have more, usually we have more specifics about these big blobs than just, something's going here, we haven't, we're not.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the next, well, no, we thought about this project, quite a bit, and because of the uncertainty with the zone change, the developer didn't want to spend money dialing in all of the buildings and design and going through the design review. They initially thought maybe we would just do the zone change, and I kind of talked to them about, I think we should at least do the subdivision, because then the boundaries are set as to where the development would be, and the street would be, dedicated once the plat is done and all that stuff. But you're right, we don't know exactly how the units will be and the exact number of units. I have talked to the city about this, and so what we're proposing is having, so the timing of how this would work would be, assuming there's an approval, the next step that the developer would do is then go through the design review process to figure out how many units could go on the site and get that approval. And that is likely to occur before the subdivision is platted. And so once it's platted, the park area, which is calculated based on the number of units, we should know that at that time. And so the area of parkland would be based on the actual number of units, not based on the theoretical number, which is right now. But
to make sure I understood that, you're asking for a zone change and approval of the R1 stuff, and approval of the parkland, based on preliminary number of units on the brown and purple spots. And then once you get that, you'll be moving towards the plats for the R1, and then you'll be going in for some sort of a second development process to build out the purple and the brown. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, so you have to go through the design review application for the multifamily and the commercial / possible multifamily in the purple, the commercial area. And so, the planning process takes quite a while. You have up to 2 years to do that. And certainly develop units to be, able to get approved for the site. And in talking to the city and the city attorney, that didn't seem to be a problem. It just needs to be clarified in findings, that the parkland, we want to dedicate the parkland. We want to dedicate it based on the actual number of units, and which kind of makes sense. And so that's kind of the proposal at this point. And then to you all, it's the question of, do you want the parkland, and are you willing to support, recommending the city enter into agreement with the developer to build the park? I kind of felt that was, there's certainly a benefit to the developer of building the park, because now there's a nice park next to their development. And I felt like there was a benefit to the city of having, the existing residents of Deer Point.
Yeah, there is
And
that. We've done that in other areas where we've had a developer that that was developing a park, and they hired a landscape architect to kind of, in this situation though, I think we've already done that. But the important part of that is working with the local neighborhood. And our consultants are going to be working real closely with that neighborhood to kind of define that park. And I think for me, my concern is that, what ends up there should reflect the desires of those neighbors, because they've been waiting a long time for that park.
Certainly.
And I think the timeline on that is probably, okay, that, I think we should have some site plan or something like that. So I think from a time standpoint, if we have the design there, we have had success where once we have a design and everybody's on board with what it is, a developer who's already out there developing the everything else around there, get the infrastructure and stuff as it's been agreed upon. But I want to hear what everybody else has to say about that.
One thought I had is I thought originally the park was going to be a combined Deer Point and the new part. And so that would be different than two halves.
I think we merge them together.
Yeah, it would be a continuous park, I think. I mean, that would make the most sense.
And with Kaplan's timeline of October with their design, we could catch up with that and see what, the local community wanted, the neighborhood, and put that together across the whole thing.
No, I mean, I think it would make sense, as we move forward, that the design could include this property as well. We'll have to figure out the exact acreage, but have some flexibility in the acreage. But the design of the park, it would be nice to include the entire property, and then the construction of it would be done as a kind of a seamless development, we'll say, of the park.
Others? Sam, Makoto, Michael, Don?
So I'm unclear on how, I don't understand what, is there an exception or something being asked, or I don't understand just our support for this plan for the park.
Who are you asking?
I guess Kathleen or anybody that can answer, like.
Was your question if there's an exception being asked for this part? Is that right?
Yeah, I don't understand what, like, the whole purple and brown part, why that's even included in the conversation.
Well, because the size of the units are being proposed on the purple and the brown. And usually when we get, this far, usually when we're seeing it, you know, they usually have a bunch of boxes or, you know, units and, you know, more like
Yeah.
townhomes or single family homes or whatever. And in this case, that's not been all decided yet. So in a way, it's kind of, you know, this is somewhat unique for us that we are getting to kind of weigh in a little bit earlier in the process. So yeah, I don't think it's an exception. It's just a little different time that we've been able to kind of ask to weigh in. Is that right, Tracy and Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's right. Kind of thinking that the timing is good. You know, that this, you know, it seems like the city is now thinking about this area to improve park. There's already a, you know, process in place to start a design for the park. You know, we're coming along, needing to dedicate parkland with this development. So I don't know, it feels like a good synergy or a good timing of things. I mean, if you weren't developing a plan already, I was going to suggest that maybe we could help develop that plan, but we don't need to do that. You're already underway in developing the plan.
Thank you for the finding what exactly it is. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the main reason we're kind of showing the other, you know, the other zones, you know, if you were to look at today's zoning, there is no park on this property. There's nothing green on that property. So this is an additional, you know, I guess a separate tract that we're proposing to dedicate as for parkland to the city, and then it would have a green zone color on it when it's finally adopted. So right now there is no park on this property. So this is kind of moving it along a little bit.
Can I get you guys to kind of weigh in from the Parks Board on kind of the shape and the location of the proposed park boundaries?
You know, I'll weigh in if that's okay. I apologize. First of all, I missed a lot of that because my internet was kind of taking a dump on me for a while there. My feeling is it's, you know, going to create a rather odd shaped park, not overly traditional. I think there would be things we could do to mitigate the noise. A nice solid barrier, rather tall along Highway 26 would go a long ways to mitigating the noise and also controlling people from accessing in and out there. Unfortunately, that is not an inexpensive thing to do, so that takes up a good chunk of whatever monies would be available to us. As far as entering into a development agreement, I personally would be comfortable considering that. I think we'd need more information before we can definitively say, yes, we would do that. But you know, as far as moving this project along, I think that's worth certainly discussing.
And if the park shrinks, if in fact it does go down, because I'm pretty sure we're not going to get anywhere near 200 units on this property if we meet all the other criteria to make that happen. But I think we would lose highway frontage on the picture we're looking at now a little bit. When Lennar did it, I was always kind of told or heard or looked at maps or was talking to previous developers, they always just wanted to take Deer Point Park and flip it over. But, you know, then there's the math of what's going on there, and that dictates the size of it. So I think we could back it off the freeway, you know, and lose some of that freeway frontage, Don. And we've looked at that too. Because that's the discussions come up with us too about the freeway and, you know, kids there and stuff like that. But doing a plan, a big, you know, put trees that'll grow big there and block it, maybe a good answer. And if we shrink that frontage down, maybe it wouldn't have to be so big.
Yeah, I just did a quick calculation of, you know, the 88 units that were originally proposed on the property, and that comes up with 1.14 acres basically. So it's a little less than what's in the Deer Point Park, which is 1.4 acres. And so, you know, if you imagine that what Alex is talking about, that line, that north-south line, originally probably just kind of almost went straight out to the highway rather than jogging over. And the jog over is because of the potential additional units on the property.
I guess, you know, one thing, I mean, if I was, you know, drawing lines on there, I would tend to kind of make the bottom southern part of that a little fatter and the highway end of things a little narrower, you know, giving us less highway frontage to deal with and a little bit, you know, fatter up, you know, a wider parkland down towards Fawn Street there.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, I kind of concur with Kathleen. I'm concerned about the Highway 26 frontage, which what Kathleen just said would mitigate some. And I'm also concerned about frontage on the commercial when we don't know what the commercial might be. But I'd go along with Don that the idea of trading credits, SDC credits for construction is something we could certainly look at.
Alex, are you proposing to kind of start construction of the R1 stuff not this summer, but next summer? Or what's your timeline?
Yeah, we obviously we wanted to start this summer, but that didn't happen because of a multitude of reasons. But yeah, we would really like to get going. We're going to fast track as soon as we could sort out the puzzle here with the pieces in the park and the different zonings, and try to get the partial rezone done to make that all work. And yeah, we definitely want to. But it's just, can we get through all the approvals in time? And I think we can, Tracy, right?
Yeah.
Kind of looked at that by.
No, I think, I mean, based on the current timeline, we're probably looking at, you know, assuming we gets approved in the, you know, October, November timeframe, and then shortly after that, submitting for design review, you know, beginning of the year. And, you know, that takes 2 or 3 months. And so by, you know, April or so, there would be a design review. And then there's a lot of construction that needs to happen on the site, you know, DeBarco Road, and there is some permitting with ODOT that needs to occur.
Yeah, I'm still trying
that
to answer on that.
DeBarco Road connection. But, I mean, I think, you know, it is feasible next summer timeframe to be doing construction out there.
And hopefully April, May.
Thoughts from others?
I guess we could work on, you know, we could, as we go into this next month or so, you know, maybe we could kind of get some ideas with some park shapes and, you know, do a couple drawings like you and Dawn discussed and see how they, so we can see visually what we're up against, how much footage on the freeway would have to be blocked, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, until we get it kind of nailed down how much space we're looking at, it's a little hard to make any commitment. What, Kathleen, I'm sorry, but maybe I missed it earlier. What exactly do we need to do tonight with this?
I believe they were asking us to weigh in on the proposed parkland and look for a recommendation for the park dedication to the, you know, agree on park dedication rather than fee in lieu of, which I think we need to talk about that, but I believe that's been the assumption all along, but of course that's a final decision for the city council. But the second thing is that they were asking for this idea about having them use SDC credits for actual development of the park. And I think, again, that's something that we could maybe agree to in concept, but, until we kind of get a little closer to, a plat map and things like that, it's probably a little premature to kind of go too far down there. I think there's, again, intent and approval are probably two different things right now.
Mhm.
Anybody else?
I think we just want to work together as we move forward to try to make that happen, and get you guys the understanding you need with regard to the units and the park size and all that.
I think
Go ahead, Don.
I think from my perspective, I'm comfortable moving forward. I'm not comfortable sending a letter committing us to, recommending anything until we have a little bit more of a tighter concept on what everything is going to look like and how many housing units we're really talking about. So I think, conceptually, I'm fine with this idea personally. But I'm not fine enough to be able to say, yes, absolutely, let's recommend that we go whole hog on this until we have a better idea, a little bit tighter idea on how many units we're talking about, how much SDC money that we would get or wouldn't get, and what the final size and shape of the property will look like. I think we need to, I guess what I'm saying, long story short, is we need to work together to refine this before we can put it into a development agreement which spells all that information out.
So it sounds like they're willing to kind of take a couple little stabs at options on the parkland shape. And I think we're going to continue working under the park's master plan process to get neighbors involved in the actual design of the park. And I think there seems to be somewhat, general agreement with the idea that, when we get down to that point, the idea of having the developer help, build the park out, seems to be a fairly economical way to do that.
I've looked at a lot of parks, and the park developments are, there's a lot of really neat stuff out there, and I'm sure a lot of the neighborhood residents will drum some of that up, looking around and studying stuff. But Dawn, I've kind of heard that the city didn't like that park that was done on the, but it looks like it has a drainage system in the park, and it looks like a really neat park, but it sounded like it might have been a maintenance. I'm sorry, I don't know the name of the park. It's kind of
Sandy Bluff Park.
Yeah, I know a little bit about that. That wasn't we got park land, and then the developer wanted to use those, sunken things for drainage, stormwater drainage, and so that's why they look like they do. And then, yeah. So, yep, there's. But
right.
Barlow Ridge,
What's
that?
The guy did down there. Why didn't they work? Or what was their problem?
Well, we don't have enough time to go into it. He clear cut the whole parcel the week before he annexed in. And I live in the, I live like, I was headed up the neighborhood association and helped. Anyways, there's a lot of history there I don't need to go into. The actual design and stuff, it was kind of it was a win-win. We got a bunch of parkland dedicated, but we didn't get, the park developed. That was kind of, we barely had our parks master plan done. And so it was the design was kind of intended to kind of serve his needs, also service, develop parkland. And so it's not that bad. There's some occasional drainage issues and all, but it's overall, we've got a nice dog park and all. Oh, yeah. So I think Hampton Ridge and Timberline and Barlow, I think, are the parks that developers have built with given SDC credits. So those are some good examples of where I think they involved local, we all work together to involve local neighbors and then have the developers build those parks as part of their developments, and it really helps sell houses too. So
Right.
it is a win-win approach.
Right.
Cool.
So I heard what Michael had to say, and I heard a little bit of Makoto. I didn't hear anything from Sam yet, or from Susan. Have they had a chance to talk?
Sam, you want to weigh in?
I'm okay with, as everybody said, going ahead and getting a little more information. That certainly seems fine with me on having them potentially develop the track and maybe adjust the boundaries a little bit. I don't have anything specific to say at the moment.
Susan, or Susan's cat? Hey, Susan? Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion?
Not quite sure what I would make the motion for, other than to continue discussions with this. If the developer, I'll make a motion. I move that we continue discussions with the developer on this potential park property. So I'll just stop it at that point.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
We have a motion from Don and a second from Susan to continue discussions about this. Is there a timeline that you want to, Tracy, is that something that you guys might be able to bring some options back to us at our next meeting, or you all feel comfortable at this point kind of committing to anything? And it's okay if you don't. I don't need to.
I don't know. I'll have to talk to the other folks about it. I mean, it's going to be hard to pin it down until we know the number of units. So there is a little bit of a moving target, but I mean, it's the intent of the developer to dedicate parkland as they are required to do. And also, the willingness to engage with the city to help develop that and construct that park. So we'll just have to kind of see what others think about some of the input that was given. I mean, I doubt if we're not gonna know the answer to the question of how many units and the exact size of the park in a month, or even probably 3-4 months until we get to the detailed design stage.
That's fine.
But it's our kind of intent to keep moving forward, and we understand the concerns, and we want to consider those. I mean, it's for anybody, it's a balancing act of the ideal versus what is the most economically feasible. So we're hoping this development can be a win-win for everybody, meaning the city, the citizens, and the developer. That's the ultimate goal. And so we're willing to work with you all and the Planning Commission to work through this process of coming up with something that everybody likes.
I think that is consistent with the spirit of my motion.
Okay.
All right. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand, please. So
I'm raising my hand. Aye.
It's unanimous that everybody's supportive of that motion. So thank you very much for coming and presenting to us. And
okay, yeah, thank you.
us posted.
I guess, I don't know if Sarah is still around if she can hear, but if I can be involved, at least notified of the update process, and I guess the master plan for this park in particular, that would be helpful, because I would like to just kind of be involved in how that shakes out, just, kind of as an observer kind of thing.
Well, bear in mind, we really can't do a full master plan for this park until we know the dimensions, the shape, the size, the
Yeah.
topography of what the park will actually be.
Yeah. I mean, I think I would say that the bones of it are pretty much there, and it's just a matter of, I guess it really depends on what sort of amenities are being considered. If it's a big grassy field, then it doesn't really matter as much. But if it's specific, hoop courts or tennis courts or dog park, or at one point we even looked at a disc golf course out here, but I think it's too small for that. So really kind of comes down to what the desires are.
Pretty sure it's going to be Sandy's first casino.
All right. Well, that might be good for this commercial development.
All right.
Sure would be.
Thank you so much. I think that, it's just something that we're going to continue to work together on and refine the plans from the master planning side and from the development side. So thanks so much for coming in and participating and educating us about what's proposed.
All right, appreciate it. Yeah, and I guess I'll leave the meeting right now and go on.
All right, thank you. We're going to go ahead.
Thanks, Tracy. Thanks, Alex. Thank you.
We'll see you guys soon.
All right, see you, Sarah.
Tracy, I'll let you know what's going on with the master plan.
Okay, thank you. And you can probably count on me sending the emails as reminders too. But thank you very much. All right, take care.
Thanks again.
So board elections. Sarah, do you want to head this one up?
Kathleen, you can probably stop screen sharing if you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Kathleen, can we take a look too? Do you see somebody as the host? Do you see Jason or somebody in attendance? Jason's trying to ask a question. It would have been the public comment period, but he had trouble getting on. Do you see that?
Okay, hold on.
Jason, if you're still there, wave your hand. There's a little button and you can let us know you want to speak. He may not still be there, but I'll circle back with him tomorrow. He did join at one point, but it was after the public comment period.
Was he the one asking about the trail behind
Yes.
the car wash?
Yeah, so I'll follow up with him.
Okay,
Yeah.
that'd be great. I don't see him.
Not
But,
behind the car wash, but from Tupper Park up through the neighborhood behind it, I believe. But anyway, I'll follow up with him and be sure, and then I'll make sure I have the information for him.
Okay, very good.
Okay. So board election.
Oh, let's see. Excuse me, I see he sent in a question. He says, I was just joined late. I may have missed the answer to my concern question.
Yeah, but Kathleen, he's not showing up as an attendee anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
That question's been sitting there since for almost an hour now.
Thank you, Lori. You obviously have way more experience on Zoom than I do.
It's okay. It's okay.
Rolling your eyes at all of us boomers here trying to use it.
There is.
I appreciate it.
I'm going to double check that, Lori, because as far as what the number of participants let me just check something really quick.
Do you think he's on there?
He could be because
when I look at panelists and attendees, there's nobody other than us.
Okay.
If he is, great.
All right, let's keep an eye on that chat box again. I didn't want to interrupt.
All right, well, let's get to these
Elections. Okay. Should we start with board chair for the next year? Can you hear me?
Say that again.
Can you hear me?
Well, you're a little choppy.
Okay, what I'd like to do is call for nominations for the board chair. Sorry about the dogs.
Could you repeat what you said, Sarah?
Yeah, I'd like to call, excuse me for a moment. Can I step up and give them something to distract them, and I will be right back.
I'll say what you said. I heard it. She's calling for nominations for the board.
Yeah, thanks, Lori.
She's calling for nominations to board chair.
For board chairperson. Michael?
Well, I'm having trouble hearing, but I heard a couple of words, and so I'm going to go forward and nominate Don for chair. And if that's out of order and not what you asked for, I'll do it later.
Okay, nomination for Dawn as board chair, and I'm going to go online and say I second that. If you didn't make the motion, I was going to make the motion because I'm more than, to hand the reins over to somebody else. So I would second that nomination of Dawn Robertson for board chair. What's next process-wise, Sarah? Do we get to hear from Dawn, or do we just vote, or how does it work?
Well, I guess, Dawn, you would need to accept the nomination. Dawn, are you there?
I will accept the nomination.
Okay.
Yes, I will accept the nomination.
And then we can call for a vote. Thank you, Dawn.
Okay, so we take out all those in favor of electing Dawn Robertson as our Parks Board Chair. Please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
It is unanimous. Dawn, thank you. Thank you for serving.
Or being served.
And I'd like to say, say thank you.
What's the next position?
I'd like to say thank you to Kathleen for so many years of service in this position. Thank you so much. And now we're calling for nominations for vice chair. Do we have a nomination for vice chair?
I'm going to say you guys can nominate yourselves. That I think I did kind of talk to a couple folks beforehand about I'm ready to turn over the reins, but I don't think we really had a chance to talk about vice chair. So if you're interested, please nominate yourselves.
Michael, I see you highlighting yourself. The vice chair, just so you know, they just run the meeting if the chairperson is absent. According to our bylaws, we are required to have a vice chair. Anybody willing to take on that role?
How about it, Susan? I promise not to be sick.
She's muted.
Say that again.
I said, how about it, Susan? I promise not to be sick and miss too many meetings.
Well, one thing I think our terms are coming to an end.
Oh, okay.
Right? And so I don't know, I mean, how does that affect all this other stuff?
Well,
I don't know. I don't.
December, this is June, that's 6 months. So are you talking about 6 months?
Couple things, you can reapply. And if for some reason you choose not to, then, we would hold an interim election, I imagine, if we had a vacancy to fill in the board officers.
Don't we still have vacancies on the board, or are we full?
Well, no, we have one more seat available. But I'm talking about the specific officers too.
Right.
If we needed to.
Well,
If you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. It's okay.
yeah, thank you.
Maybe Makoto or Sam will want to do it. Or Michael.
Well, I was going to nominate myself for secretary.
Oh, that's excellent.
I appreciate it.
How about Makoto or Sam? Are either of you guys interested in being vice chair or vice?
Not at the moment, but I'll second Michael for secretary.
All right, let's jump to that since we're there. Michael has accepted the nomination, I believe, for secretary. Thank you.
Seconded by Sam. All those in favor of making Michael our secretary, vote aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
Yeah.
Raise my hand.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Michael.
Hey, no pressure, Makoto.
Come on, step up, you guys.
It's the easiest gig of them all.
Okay, you know, if that's the rule. I was gonna say Sam probably has more life experience than me when it comes to those matters.
All the authority and none of the responsibility. Vice chair, come on.
Okay. Yeah.
I heard an okay.
Okay.
Right.
I took that as a yes, I accept that nomination.
Thank you, Makoto.
And do we have a second for Makoto?
I second it.
Susan seconds it. All those in favor of Makoto being vice chair, vote aye.
Aye, raising my hand.
Unanimous. All right, thank you, Makoto.
Well, that's an honor. Thank you.
All right.
Oh, by the way, I'm going on vacation next month. I'll be gone for 6 months.
Okay, all right. On to the next thing. Thank you, everybody. And Kathleen, thank you again. I don't think we can say that. Thank you again. Let's see, community garden. Can we move on to that?
Sure.
Okay, so the project manager from the ant farm is having some challenges. His plan was to replace all the 4x4s, but the wood is so rotted at the bottom, getting the screws and everything to come out, he's having all kinds of issues. So that project is kind of stalled at the moment. He is looking at whether in the fall we might be able to replace all the beds for the same amount of money, just completely replace them for basically the budget we had allocated for the repairs. So he's looking at that, feels it would be a better use of our funds because it would be completely replaced. And he's been trying really hard, and but I'm a little disappointed that it's not complete. But now I'm getting worried that, what is that? Somebody not muted? I'm getting worried that now people's plants are growing and it's going to get more difficult if he had to get in there and actually dig out those posts. So I just want some feedback, see how the board feels about that. And if we can kind of put it on hold, take a look at the budget for the fall when it might be a better time to do a more massive renovation.
I'm guessing fall would be better at this point.
I think so too.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought too, but I wanted to get your input. Thank you.
Does that bring all the wood frame or still just the corners?
No, that would be the entire bed, the sideboards, the 4x4s. Now, again, we got to look at the realities of the funding, but he feels like we might be able to do it. So I just asked him to take a closer look at it, you know, run some numbers and get back to me.
Great.
We good?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And I think, you know, we should look at putting some like metal strapping or something around the corners. Because the way we have it designed is when you put the 4x4 posts on the inside,
yeah,
and then just the dirt just wants to push the boards out. So it really does take some sort of secondary, the nice angle iron corner braces for garden beds are pretty expensive, but you can kind of go on the cheap and just do the metal strapping, and that should come together.
Okay. All right. We can talk about specifics. I'd love to get in the weeds on that at another time, but thank you for that input. The parks maintenance
policy.
Okay, so after our last meeting, I reached out to Mike Walker and Joe Preston, and the ball is rolling. The first thing Joe said is they'll go ahead and right away change their signage policy. And then Joe and I are going to talk and work on the specifics and detail that out a little bit more so that then we can.
Just to be clear, sir, you're talking about weed spraying and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you had asked me to reach out, right, and to work with them to develop something a little more specific that you could then potentially adopt and make a recommendation to council that they have an official policy. So I just wanted to let you know that the ball is rolling. And I don't know if you heard that first part, but Joe's going to change the signage issue right away and put more signs up when they're spraying, mark the entrances better. So that ball is rolling along. So I just wanted to let you know.
Good.
Okay. I'll let Kathleen and Dawn take the master plan update.
I'll defer to Kathleen.
Okay, well, I guess I'm going to try to share screen again real quick. And how do I do that again? Share screen. Okay.
I'll just talk while Kathleen is sharing screen. I can tell you that we are scheduling another meeting for the Technical Advisory Committee. I believe that's going to be next week, Kathleen. Is that not correct?
Yeah, it's June 16th.
And I think at that point, we're going to be doing a little bit more refinement on what she's sharing with you right here. There you go. I stalled for you, Kathleen.
Great. Okay, so these, because I don't want to go too much over our 9 o'clock in case you guys have to get to work tomorrow. But the documents that Sarah sent out, it would behoove everybody to just kind of take a look, because this is kind of the pieces of our Parks Master Plan of what it's going to look like, what you're going to see when we get it. And some of this you've already seen, but basically can you guys all see that screen that I'm sharing? Okay. Existing park inventory, again, we've identified the different category of parks: mini parks, neighborhood parks, community, I'm reading over here on the left side, community parks, natural open space, and special use areas. And so you can see where the different parks ended up in the different categories. Some of that is, let's see. Oh, like Knollwood Park technically is in the, there's the Knollwood Park tot lot in the neighborhood park section. And then it's the Knollwood Park, the rest of the property that's actually Knollwood Park that's kind of like, along Tickle Creek, kind of ended up in the natural open space area. So we've kind of tried to because otherwise when you count all the, Knollwood is, I think, almost 6 acres. Well, obviously Knollwood Park is, pretty much just the, as far as being developed as a active park, you've got the actual playground and then you've got a lot of open space. So we just counted the, actual playground and trail as part of the developed parkland. Because what happens is when you start counting all that open space that might be part of a park, you end up, it's not actually serving as a park. And so then you end up, it looks like you're fine on parks. You don't need any more parks. Well, that's not the right answer, because you can't really develop that 5.5 acres or 6 acres, whatever it is, as, you know, for sounds of what the existing park is and what the structures are in there, and a little bit of additional notes. Summary there that we have a total of 277.59 park areas. Obviously, a lot of that is your, you know, you can see a lot of, and these numbers are going to continue to change because I've already kind of seen, you know, errors on the figures, but a lot of that 277 acres is actually, you know, Sandy River Park, the community campus section that goes down the hill, and things like that. And of course, you know, mining parks in there too. Okay, going to the next page, we've got the trail inventory, and that's where this is kind of another situation where, you know, what do you count as a trail? Obviously, Tickle Creek is a trail. Jim Slagle Loop is a trail. But we've also got some sidewalks in here and some things like that. So we're going to continue to kind of be refining, you know, what gets counted and what doesn't. And so take a look at these, every one of these. So, you know, I haven't walked on every section of these. So if you guys could, you know, especially that you live in this neighborhood, take a look at this list and just ground truth it for us, or at least kind of say, you know, that's not really a trail, or you know, anyways, give us some feedback on this stuff. It's got a lot of those, you know, kind of undeveloped, like, you know, these alleyways that, you know, some people live near. And again, I don't know all these things. So Path, I have no idea. I think, Makoto, that's over in your neck of the woods. Maybe this list, please, and just if you could kind of do a little ground truthing. Okay, the next thing is what's called level of service, and that's where it's kind of looked at. Level of service is kind of how much do we have and what is kind of a standard level of service. So the way they determine sometimes for level of service is in what's called a SCORP report. And the SCORP, oh God, okay, the SCORP report is what is SCORP?
State Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan.
Yeah, that. Thank you, John. So yeah, and it's a great document that just kind of identifies, you know, on a large scale or a statewide scale, what people are looking for in parks and trails service for the different cities to kind of look towards. SCORP doesn't address everything, but it does address some of those kind of park indicators, just to kind of compare and weigh how do we measure up with, you know, the statewide average or things. So as you see, looking at this thing, you've got the total acres. Again, you go to the developed acres because that's really kind of what we're talking about here, and the total current level of service. So it's based on acres or miles or things like that. So for example, on, you know, I'm just going to go to community parks. We've got a total acres of 31.62. 10 of, almost 11 of those are developed. Our current level of service is 2.79. The, wait a minute, what is it? Current total level of service. Current developed level of service, though, is only 0.95. So the SCORP recommendation is anywhere from 2 to 6. So we're on obviously the low end of the range, and we've got some, you know, plans for, you know, some of that may end up being the community that so take a look at these things, and that's kind of how you read that, is you got the current total level of service, and then you got the developed level of service. And we're going to need, you know, if we want to get to, you know, the recommendation here, we got to make sure our developed level of service is at least within the SCORP recommendation. And we can also decide that, you know, we don't want to meet the SCORP target, or we want to exceed the SCORP target. So that's all up in there. What you see there with the neighborhood parks that's really important is, you know, our current developed level of service is 1.54, and the recommendation is 1.0 to 2.0. You know, so we've got a pretty good Midland, you know, we kind of meet that, but there are gaps in service, and that's where you get that, you know, spacing of where the parks are. And obviously there's, you know, obviously the whole northeast quadrant of the town doesn't have any parks. So developed parks, that is. We've got the community campus. So that's kind of where there's also some qualifiers to the, there's the quantity and the quality of the parks. And then you can see the open space. So the next table has to go with, again, level of service by comparison to other places. And Sandy's grayed out there in the middle. So again, the total park LOS, we have, again, that's not the developed, so you kind of have to look at that, but you can kind of see how we weigh up with different communities by comparison. I'm not going to go through each one of these very, because we don't have time, but take a look at got your existing level of service and then what's our needs. And that's where, again, looking at neighborhood parks, we've got, a recommended level of service preliminarily at 1.75. And in order to get that, we've got a current acres need of 2.37. We've got 12, hopefully nobody heard that. Did y'all hear that? Okay, if anybody heard, my family just came home and somebody, I think, said a bad
Didn't hear a word.
Said a bad word, okay. Anyways, the neighborhood parks, in the future, we've got, one park needed to meet the current level of service. And then the future level of service had to do with, again, when population goes to, what was the, I don't know, they've got like a 20 or 30 year population estimate. And so for the future, that six acres of, I can't see that, 6 new neighborhood parks and 1 community park is going to be needed in the future. So, yeah, we need 1 community park now, and that's kind of the community campus that needs to get developed. And then in the future, we'll need another community park and 6 more neighborhood parks. And then the trails, they're saying that we've got enough trails. I think that's something that we should be looking at more, but that's, I guess, given that our surveys all seem to say that people want more trails, that's something where we might want to exceed the SCORP level of service. Okay, then you've got the needs analysis, and this kind of gets into a lot more details about, off-leash dog parks and all that, and I'm just going to skip over that because it's almost 9 o'clock. So take a look at that. It gets you into a lot more specifics. Okay, that's all that one. And then when you get to this other document, this shows your existing inventory, and that's these colors on the left-hand side kind of show you what's getting counted as what, what gets counted as a neighborhood park and all that. And so like one of the things I can kind of see this bright green over here. Well, that's all, part of the open space of this park. It does cut off about right up here, the community campus, but everything, over here. So we're still in the process of refining these maps, which refines the acres, which refines the, level of service stuff and all that, but it's all on a spreadsheet. So as soon as they make a change on the map, it corrects automatically all the spreadsheets, which is nice. So this is the existing, the first one was the existing parks and how they're sourced, and then the second one was the existing trails. And that's, again, where, if you could, please, if you live in any of these neighborhoods, please, just go take a look at that and let us know that that's kind of actually a, is it a trail? Is it a sidewalk? Does it exist? We still need to kind of ground truth all that a little bit. The next thing is then, again, looking to the future, we started looking at, and this is, this is kind of what we've already done in the past, is looked at neighborhood parks and community parks and the service area that they serve. And neighborhood parks are intended to serve a zone of anywhere from 1/4 to 1/2 mile. And so that's why you see those yellow is the 1/4 mile mark and blue is the 1/2 mile mark. And you can kind of see, where we've got some gaps. Obviously, we've got some gaps in the whole northeast section. The cross hatching is kind of meant to denote the fact that, you know, yes, there is a park there, but it's not developed yet. Let's see, the Champion Way is not developed either. So, yeah.
I think the only thing I would add on that, Kathleen, is that when they're doing the planning, they're not just looking at the existing city limits, they're looking at urban reserves also.
Right. So this is kind of our existing parks and what's out there. And then you go to the figure 4, and this is kind of a proposed inventory. And this is where, you know, this is kind of, some of this stuff is kind of a result of what we've suggested as possible, you know, locations. And again, it's kind of showing neighborhood parks, some mini parks, and doesn't show any community parks. That's, you know, I'm just kind of, yeah. And this is a proposed trail system that we've all looked at before. A lot of this is kind of, you know, based on what we want, but I think they have tweaked it some. So let's see, proposed trails. I don't think they've done the kind of, yeah. So take a look at these and give us your input on this, and we'll carry that forward. Yeah. Any questions?
Kathleen, before we end it, I just need to ask you, when you leave the meeting on your personal computer, will you just look, because you're the host, it may ask you to convert the recording. So will you just look for that? I don't know if it's going to show up on mine or on yours at this point, but it takes a little while to convert it. So if it shows up on yours, if you wouldn't mind doing that, I'd appreciate it.
Any other comments, concerns?
When do we get inaugurated?
When do we get free? Sarah?
I'm really digging these proposed trails. That's really cool. Who came up with these trails?
It was a group effort where we just kind of sat down, you know, past Parks Board's members have sat down and kind of looked at, you know, we were trying to look at, you know, where are key destinations, where are key neighborhoods, how do we link parks together, how do we link neighborhoods together to the key destinations, how do we, you know, key into, you know, getting people over to Tickle Creek Trail from the neighborhoods, how do we create kind of a loop around the town so that, you know, because obviously you got the Sandy River Park, Jim Slagle stuff going down the river, but otherwise, you know, there's just some gaps, you know, so like if I wanted to go walk, you know, do a circle around the town or, you know, even walk from my house over to the Sandy River Park or over to the, you know, Vista Loop or something, how do you get there? So just trying to kind of link neighborhoods, link parks, and link key destinations like schools and, you know, stores and things like that.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
It was a fun effort, yeah. So definitely take a look at them, please. Other comments, concerns? Oh, when do we get inaugurated and liberated? Sarah, you're muted.
You mean as far as a Parks Board, when can we meet in person again?
No. When do we take office?
Oh, immediately at the end of this meeting. Actually, July 1st, technically.